Hi, I'm Marcus Ryle, and in this video I'd like to show you the Oberheim OB-X8 and do some comparisons with the new Oberheim OB-X8. But first, let me give you a bit of history. The OB-X8 was introduced in 1981, and it was the successor to the Oberheim OB-X, which launched in 1979, and we demonstrated it in a previous video. The OB-X8 added a number of new features to the OB-X line. First off, it had the ability to split or double the keyboard. While the OB-X could only make one sound at a time of up to 8 voices, the OB-X8 could be split into two 4-voice synthesizers so that you could have a different sound on your left hand and right hand, or double them up to have a 4-voice sound with two different sounds at the same time. The OB-X8 also added the F-env, or filter envelope modulation feature, which let you use the filter envelope to modulate the pitch of oscillator 2. We also added a 4-pole filter, so that instead of just having a 2-pole available, you had 2 different filter choices in the OB-X8. And of course, on top of that, it had its distinctive look, with the OB-X8 being the first of many Oberheim synthesizers to utilize the blue pinstripe graphic design. Another significant design difference was on the inside, where the OB-X8 utilized Curtis chips for the oscillators and filters rather than discrete electronics. And although the oscillator waveforms ended up identical, the filters do have a subtle difference, and we're going to hear those differences in these examples. Another important difference between the OB-X and the OB-X8 is that rather than just having 4 groups of 8 sounds, or 32 preset locations, the OB-X8 let you select any combination of the 4 groups. That gives you 15 total groups of 8, or 120 memory locations. On most OB-X8s, you'll see 120 programs on a sticker right here. Sadly, mine has fallen off. But this unit does have all 120 preset locations. Of those 120 locations, only 104 had factory presets. That's a lot of presets, so I'm not going to go through all the presets. In fact, I'm just going to show you a few examples that primarily focus on what made the OB-X8 different than the OB-X. So let's start with preset A1, which is called Brass Ensemble. That's the same name as preset A1 on the OB-X. However, in the OB-X8, it's utilizing the 4-pole filter, so you can hear a different timbre to that brass ensemble sound. One thing to consider while comparing the sounds of these synths is to remember that these are still both 100% analog audio path synthesizers. And as a result, the phase relationship of the oscillators and which voice is being played, as well as the phase relationship of LFOs and so on, is going to be different each time we play. So in fact, if I play the same thing on the same synth multiple times, it won't sound exactly the same as well. That's part of the magic of analog synthesizers. But you can hear that the overall character of the synthesizer is the same between the two units. Let's listen to a few more 4-pole filter sounds. Preset B1 is called French horns. Preset C1 is called trumpets. Now let's listen to an example of the 2-pole filter. The 2-pole in the OB-X8 is utilizing the Curtis chip, but it is configured in a very similar way to the state variable filter of the OB-X. So the difference is a bit subtle, but there is a difference. So preset C4 is called Resonance Sweep, similar preset from the OB-X, and we'll listen to it on the OB-X8 utilizing the Curtis chip, and also listen to it on the OB-X8 also using the Curtis chip. You can hear that the envelope times are subtly different. That's because the OB-X8's times are actually going to change with temperature. As the synthesizer warms up, the time gets faster, and when the synthesizer is cold, the time is slower. This is something that's really not under user control, other than with your thermostat. In the case of the OB-X8, we made it so the envelopes will always be consistent to what you've programmed it to be. And if you want to have some variation, you can utilize the vintage knob to change the speed. So I didn't bother to rematch these presets based on the temperature changes, but you can hear that the overall sonic quality of the filter sweep is the same. Now on the OB-X8, we can switch to the two-pole filter from the OB-X, basically the state variable discrete filter, so that we can hear the difference. Again, it's somewhat subtle, but I'll just play the same thing first with the Curtis filter and then with the OB-X filter. Now I'll play through some presets that utilize the F-env or filter envelope modulation feature. This is where we're able to use the filter's envelope to modulate the pitch of oscillator 2 to cause it to detune over time. We'll start with preset D1, which is called F-env horns or filter envelope horns. And in this case, we're using the filter envelope to modulate the pitch of oscillator 2 to go up a fifth above where oscillator 1 is. And you'll hear that bending sound that's going to be at the rate of the attack of the envelope. Preset ABC4 is called soft piano, and it has a more subtle use of the filter envelope modulation, where oscillator 2 starts out just a little detuned and then gets more in tune over time. Frankly, not all of the factory presets of the OB-X8 are necessarily musically useful, but here's a few more that show off the filter envelope modulation. This one's called Comedy Comp. And here's one called Box O Pups. Preset ACD4 is called Flanged Piano, and although it's not actually flanging, it generates that sound by doing some LFO modulation of the pulse width of the oscillators, while also using the filter envelope to cause a bit of detuning. Once again, the LFOs are not going to be in phase between the synths, so you won't hear the same phasing or flanging type sound for each given note, but you can hear the overall sound characteristic is the same. Here's one last example that utilizes the double feature of the OB-X8, where we're going to layer two sounds or two voices on each note. In this case, using A1 or brass ensemble combined with A2, which is clavinet tuned up an octave. I hope you enjoyed those examples of OB-X8 presets. Thanks for watching. And here's one called Box O Pups.